Jack Smith knows he's on the precipice of being indicted by an out-of-control, power-mad Donald Trump, who's going after his enemies list. And next on the list looks like it's going to be Jack Smith. How do I know? Because Donald Trump said it out loud, but Jack Smith's not taking this lying down. He's come out of the shadows. He's gone on and given interviews in the last week. He's talking directly to the American people about the rule of law, about the destruction of the Department of Justice, and about apolitical civil servants who've been serving the Department of Justice for decades and multiple presidents all being shown the door, being fired or quitting, and what it is doing to our democracy. He knows he's about to go before Congress. But, of course, they want to hide him behind closed doors. He's not going to be doing live testimony. He's going to be behind closed doors. And his lawyers are firing back about BS talking points that somehow Jack Smith, without federal court approval, wiretapped, intercepted phone calls and messages of senators and congresspeople. That's not what happened. That's not what the federal judge authorized, and that's not what occurred. We cover it all in the midweek edition of Legal AF, and here is a clip.
Let's continue on now with Jack Smith. Jack Smith, the special counsel, who I used to work with at the Manhattan DA's office. He's a prosecutor's prosecutor, great guy. He's prosecuted locally at the Manhattan DA's office early in his career. Then he went on to the U.S. Attorney's Office. He's worked in the Main Justice. He worked in, he was the United States Attorney at one point, I think in Tennessee, if I remember correctly. And he also was an international prosecutor. I mean, he's a true public servant. He's never worked in the private sector. I would have no idea what political party he is in. We've never talked about politics. He's apolitical. He just is a prosecutor, right? He does justice and follows the facts wherever they lead without fear or favor. Understandably, he was the perfect person to be chosen by Merrick Garland and Joe Biden to do the investigation into January 6th and the riots and the horrible day that was. And you know, I always wondered when Trump was going after all his enemies, you know, Letitia James and Jim Comey and Adam Shifty Schiff and all the stuff he says. And I was always wondering, like, why isn't he going after Jack Smith? You know, because you would think just that's somebody that would be in his crosshairs. And it's been a while, right? We haven't heard from Jack Smith. He hasn't spoken publicly. And then all of a sudden, Jack Smith starts to speak publicly. He was interviewed by Andrew Weissman. My theory is that Jack Smith must have gotten wind that he was up next, you know, whether it's somebody contacted his lawyers, whether they're starting to issue subpoenas, something. And so he decided to come out. And again, this is just like a theory. I don't have any inside information, but I don't think it's any coincidence that Jack Smith came out and started talking publicly. And now all of a sudden he's in the crosshairs of Trump. And now Trump is talking about him and he wants to go after him and Andrew Weissman. And of course, what's going on? The Republicans in the Senate are doing Trump's bidding for him, right? That's how it works. There is no independent Congress right now. It's so unbelievable how they're just letting Trump do everything. They have abrogated their duty to have oversight, to provide checks and balances, to be an independent body, independent of the president. They're just being an arm of the president. And here, the Republicans, apparently the Senate Republicans, have accused Jack Smith of wiretapping them. And they said that it was political weaponization. And they said that the FBI disclosed a report in 2023 showing court orders used to obtain phone information belonging to certain, I guess, 8 senators and 1 House member. And they covered calls surrounding the 4 days around January 6th. And this was a letter by Chuck Grassley, and essentially, or I should say, not a letter. This was an accusation by the Senate Republicans, and so Jack Smith wrote a letter to Chuck Grassley and the chairman of the Judiciary Committee through his lawyers, and the Democratic, I think one is Dick Durbin, and they basically said that, look, there wasn't any political motive in obtaining these records. They were disclosed in 2024 in the indictment, so there's no secret here. And P.S., there was no wiretap. And, so I want to just explain to people what was done and what is always done in almost every prosecution is you can subpoena phone records that have no content, like words in them. There's no communication. There's no content in them. It's just literally like, who does it belong to? Right? Like you can get information about phone calls in a certain area. And so you want to, or you can have information. I guess what they were doing here was there were news reports that certain senators and House members were in communication with the president surrounding January 6th. So they asked for those targeted individuals. Yes, they happen to be 8 senators and 1 House member, their phone records to see, is that true? Were they in communication with the president? This was an investigation into the president. And so they issued subpoenas for those phone records. And what you'll get is you'll get the name, you'll get the subscriber information, you'll get the phone number. And he did it for those 4 days only. So it was very targeted and very narrow. And you will get all the calls incoming and outgoing listed just in a list, like this number called this number for this amount of time, all for those 4 days. That's it. It doesn't say what they spoke about. It doesn't say anything about the content. And you can do that with a subpoena. You don't need or a search warrant. You don't need like a wiretap order. And so he got that information, and that's the information that he got, just a list. And so it was a very short time. It was consistent with this very focused effort to confirm or refute, frankly, these reports from these multiple news outlets. And this letter has pointed out too that, look, those same kind of records were also obtained by Robert Hur when he was investigating Joe Biden and his mishandling of the classified documents case, or Senator Bob Menendez in his bribery case also. And so it's just crazy. I mean, Grassley's saying, oh, this is worse than Watergate, and this is so terrible. They wiretap senators in Congress. And it's just not true. They did not. Wiretapping means that you're listening in on the calls. It means you get content. It means you get to hear what was said. That's what wiretapping is. And this isn't that. This is just who called who, or what phone number called what phone number. Somebody else could have had the phone, right? It's just what phone number called what phone number at what time, on what date, and for how long. And that's what it shows.
I think we're seeing Jack Smith unleashed from Merrick Garland. Merrick Garland, I believe, truly held back Jack Smith. And I'm so glad that he is standing up for his reputation and, frankly, the facts. Because as you said, that Senate hearing, Kash Patel acting like he's literally wiretapping senators or representatives would be huge. But that, as you said, isn't what happened. And I'm so glad this whole thing of like, oh, they're lying about us, we're just going to ignore it, is gone. Jack Smith putting in his letter, and now the public telling the public that that is not what happened. And I like too how he's put in that letter that this information about the fact that they tried to figure out who Trump was talking to on January 6th, because they were trying to determine if Trump was asking certain senators or Congress people to not certify the 2020 election. That is what he was investigating. And he was, like you said, it was out in the media about these conversations, and they were trying to piece together who he was actually talking to in order for them to investigate and make their case. He said all of this got turned over to Trump in discovery as Trump's indictment proceeded. And so people who are now in the high level of the White House and the DOJ know the facts. Todd Blanche, we're looking at you. Who else? Who knows? Because Trump has basically taken all of his personal lawyers and put them into the DOJ and the White House. So there's a bunch of people who actually know the truth. And so I like that he called him out, and he's not going to be willing to allow Republicans to frankly lie about the facts, because we're not there anymore. We got to be louder. They're loud. We have to be louder. And I really hope we hear more from Jack Smith, because I think there's like a potential in him we haven't fully realized yet. I hope he's just getting started.
Yeah, look, I have to say, again, I haven't talked to Jack Smith in a very long time, but having worked with him years ago and just knowing how he was trained and how he was brought up, this is the last thing he wants. The last thing he wants is to have to speak publicly about this or to go out and defend himself. He's not like, that's why no one had really ever heard of him before he was appointed. And you never really heard anything about him. He didn't speak publicly. He did everything quietly. I think he gave one or two very short press conferences. And he's just not that guy. He's not this ego-driven guy who's going to go out and talk unless he has to. And so I think that's what's happening. And I think that's, like I said, that's why I think he must have known and gotten wind that he was next. And so he has to defend himself. But I honestly think if Trump had never started this with him, you would not have heard. Jack would have gone. And again, this is just me hypothetically, I'm just thinking, I don't have any inside information, just knowing him from before, I think he would just be very happy to go about his life. He did his duty. He served the public. When Trump v. US came down by the United States Supreme Court and basically said it's not a crime, he dismissed the case. That's it. He didn't, he's a rule follower. He's a law follower. He's not an ego-driven, grandstanding narcissist. He's not that guy. And he's truly exemplifies a public servant. And so I'm sure we'll hear more from him because he has to. I don't think this is what he wants or kind of where he wanted to be. He just wanted to do his job and serve the public. So, but here we are.
It is serving the public to just combat the lies and information. And they did it in Senate hearings on the record. So even if he's not got an indictment, I'm really glad that he spoke out to correct the record, because that is a really big accusation to make. And that needed to be answered by the person who knew, the person that anybody with any sort of credibility. And that was him. And so I'm glad he spoke.
I agree. And it's just, what's really kind of offensive is the senator who's saying it is Chuck Grassley. He's the head of the Senate Judiciary Committee. He knows about what a wiretap is because he provides oversight at that, right? That's what his job does, is he oversees the judiciary system. He oversees what happens in criminal cases. He knows what a wiretap is, and he knows what a wiretap isn't. And for him to accuse Jack Smith of doing a wiretap when it's clearly not, where it is absolutely not, where this is just getting phone records, is really misleading the public and kind of offensive, right? And so it's just kind of appalling to me that that they're saying that. And I agree with you. I am glad that they're correcting the record. It's just, and that's what we have to do here on Legal AF. We have to tell the truth, what things are and what things aren't. And that's what we're trying to do here, is just get facts out, and then people can make their own opinions.
If you didn't know before why we call it Legal AF, well, now you do. Wednesdays and Saturdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on the MeidasTouch Network. And then we do a commercial-free version over here on the Legal AF Substack, which you can pick up for $6.77 a month. I promise you will overwhelm you with amazing content. With your help, we're the #1 law and politics podcast out there. Top 20 of all podcasts on YouTube every week. And on the audio side, we could use some help and some love over there. It's the Hummingbird Theory. Keep us at the top of the charts on Spotify and Apple. So until my next report, I'm Michael Popak. I'm Michael Popak, and I got some big news for our audience. Most of you know me as the co-founder of MeidasTouch's Legal AF and the Legal AF YouTube channel, or as a 35-year national trial lawyer. Now, building on what we started together on Legal AF, I've launched a new law firm, the Popak Firm, dedicated to obtaining justice through compassionate and zealous legal representation. At the Popak Firm, we are focused on obtaining justice for those who have been injured or damaged by a life-altering event by securing the highest dollar recoveries. I've been tirelessly fighting for justice for the last 35 years, so my own law firm organically building on my Legal AF work just feels right. And I've handpicked a team of top-tier trial fighters and settlement experts throughout all 50 states known as big auto injury attorneys who have the know-how to beat heartless insurance companies, corporations, government entities, and their attorneys. Big Auto's attorneys working with my firm are rock stars in their respective states and collectively responsible for billions of dollars in recoveries. So if you or a loved one have been on the wrong side of a catastrophic auto, motor vehicle, rideshare, or truck accident, suffered a personal injury, or been the victim of medical malpractice, employment harassment or discrimination, or suffered a violation of your civil and constitutional rights, then contact the Popok firm today at 1-877-POPOK-AF or by visiting my website at www.thepopokfirm.com and fill out a free case evaluation form. And if we determine that you have a case and you sign with us, we don't get paid unless you do. The Popok firm, fighting for your justice every step of the way.